Hi, Heather. It's great to connect today. Thanks so much for your time.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, a few months ago, I was attending College Board's annual Advanced Placement Conference, and I noticed a workshop called Fail Early, Fail Often: How to Increase Student Engagement and Learning. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to connect with the gal who's leading this workshop. So I thought, who better to join us today than you to give us your insight on how to bring this concept of failure front and center. So let's start with your why. Why did you decide to address the concept of failure with your students?
Well, and it's actually kind of funny because I started with my failure. So when I started teaching AP, it's about 12 years ago, the first couple years I was teaching it, I was not successful, not the way I wanted to be. So my students were doing okay on the test, but every conversation was about how many points are they going to earn and was this going to be on the test? And they were not really engaged in the learning, just in the memorization of what we were doing. And no one was having fun. They weren't having fun. I wasn't having fun. And
Mhm.
I'm definitely an outside the box teacher. I don't like open the book, turn to the page, and do the worksheet. And so I went looking in the summertime. I went looking for something different, something that I could use in my class that's going to, I don't know, bring in something more into the classroom. And then I found this.
Amazing. So I think when you talk about being an out of the box teacher and trying something that's different and new, when you were doing the workshop at the conference, you spoke about being inspired by Dr. Tony Wagner, a globally recognized leader in education from Harvard's Graduate School of Education, and his encouragement of risk taking and innovation and real learning, and not this rote memorization that can be so commonplace today. So, with that, I'm wondering if you could walk us through a simple exercise of how you've inspired real learning in your classroom when you were warming students up to this idea.
Sure, I'd love to. So let me go ahead and show you. So this is the activity that I like to do that really focuses quite a bit on understanding why we're doing this real learning rather than just memorizing things out. And so I'll usually ask my students to see if they can remember this number. I'm going to give them some time for it. I'll put a timer on just to make things a little more challenging. I'll usually talk through it. I remind them that that's what we do. We keep talking while you're supposed to be learning stuff. And then at the end of the timer, I blur it. And I ask my students if they can go ahead and repeat back all the numbers to me. And so even if you get someone who's really good at memorization, I'm looking at usually like 5 numbers, 6 numbers, 7 digits out of that whole set. They know they didn't get them all. And then, of course, even as I'm sitting here with this, we have the conversation. So if this is just memorization for the point of learning rote memorization, are they going to remember the number tomorrow when they need it for the test? Are they going to remember the number next week when they come back and we try to use it? Or even for my students where I'm teaching them in October, November for a May AP exam, are they going to remember it? And, you know, we kind of laugh about it, but as teachers, we all know they're not going to. Like if you're memorizing something just overnight, it's not going to stick with you. So that's where I get a chance to really talk to them about the why and explain to my students that when we're talking about why we're learning, if we can connect it to something else, if we can make it make sense by connecting more pieces, they're not only going to just be memorizing it, but they're going to be able to use it. And so I'll tell my students that the thing that they're looking for, the connecting piece, is prime numbers. And so I'll open it back up again. But at this point, my students don't even really need the 30 seconds I would normally put on the clock because they've already figured out how to look at the prime numbers. And even at the end of 10 seconds, if I blur it again, my students are already going up the number line. And they may have to stop and work at it, but as they're going from 19 and then their 20 is not, so 23 is, and 25 is not, and they start moving on up, they're actually using a concept, if you will. They're connecting the dots more than if they had just memorized the information. And so when we're talking to students about why we want to do this, why we want to jump into this different version of how to learn, that's a critical piece, that they understand why it matters, what the difference is between memorization and real learning. The other activity that I do, and I do it at the very beginning, first day, second day of class, depending if my students were able to watch the video over summer as homework, is the next piece is to set them up as a warm-up at the beginning of the year, set them up for failure. And I know that seems really mean, but one of the things that I really like to share is that my students are actually more familiar with failure. And we don't tend to think like that. For AP students, they don't tend to think like that. But the fact is they've all had that. They might have learned how to ski. They might have learned how to ride a bike. Some of them probably remember learning a new trick with athletics or with band. And so I deliberately give them this linked wrist activity where I have them, connect to each other, and they're supposed to try to figure out how to get unconnected. So. I love showing this because the kids are obviously having fun. So this is a key part, is that it's enjoyable. We're not feeling like we're getting upset over the fact that we're not getting it right. And so we have a conversation at that point where we talk about the fact that this is a game. That's why they're not upset over it. They don't have a grade for it. That's why they're not upset over it. They know they're learning something new. That's why they're not upset over it. And so we have the conversation about the mindset that it takes to be willing to do something new, learn something new, and not worry about the fact that they're not getting it right. And again, these are AP seniors. So for these kids, like, that's a big leap to ask them to do that in a classroom setting. So I have to design what I'm doing the rest of the class to go ahead and match that. So it can't be about the grade. It can't be about the points. It can't be they're in trouble because they get something wrong. But that's a great starting spot for how to create that, engagement in failure, that learning through failure mindset.
I love how you shared that you start this at the very beginning of the school year. I think that activity we saw there, that's on day one of the school year, right? So this normalizing failure starts on day one. What does it continue to look like for you through the course of the year, especially as you get further into the school year, when things start to seem a little bit more high stakes, or maybe the pressure is on?
And I'm very, in that sense, hard on my students. I see this as a college class, so I don't take late work, and I don't baby them, and they don't get bonus points. But I also don't put a whole lot of pressure on the points to start with. So the quizzes that I give, they're what I call pass fail. So even if a student fails a quiz, they're getting a 6 out of 10 instead of a 0 or a 1 out of 10. And so that's already bumping them where you can recover from that. That's not an over and done with thing. I routinely throughout the year start with a challenge. So I'll start my next unit in economics. And again, economics by itself is already a challenge because they've never taken that class before. It's their first roll with it. And I'll shove them into the puzzle first and let them figure it out. And one of the things that I really appreciate about being able to do that with a bunch of really smart kids is that if I give them the puzzle first, I would say 80% of the time they actually come up with the right answer. They just can't give me the economics reason for the right answer. And so it really reinforces to my students that they know something, even though they didn't understand that they knew it. And then my job is to simply work around what they already know to connect the dots, which is really going back to what we said before. That's where real learning actually occurs. And so my grading cycle is based on that. My quiz cycle is based on that. Every lesson, I'm going to start a new unit and we're cheering for each other. They chant fail early, fail often. I have stickers that say it that they get to wear proudly around their water bottles and their notebooks. And it's the culture of the class and they embrace it. The AP chemistry teacher told me the other day, because we just started school, she goes, someone brought fail early, fail often to my class. And I love it when the other teachers who also have a mindset outside the box are also willing to celebrate that and go, okay, so now we're learning something, and they get it. That becomes the focal point. And so my students know that they can get extra help. They know which other people have that too in their classes, but it takes on a different meaning because then I'm deliberately giving them opportunities to fail. They know it. I'm upfront with it. I'm setting you up for failure because I know if I can find out why you got it wrong, I can help you understand how to get it right.
What would you say, and this is a little off the cuff, I know this is not a question that we had talked about previously, but when you think about your own practice of teaching, of education, and where you've learned to fail early and fail often. What would you say was that pivotal experience for you personally?
For me, I think it was actually this recent summer. I was assigned to write a document write the document for my school, but for the state to read. It's called WASC. It's so we can get our accreditation. And to be very honest with you, it is not a strength for me. I didn't realize it when I signed up to do it. I'm a very good writer, but it involved a lot of data points that I don't know and don't care. It sounds really bad, but I don't. It involved a lot of terminology that as a classroom teacher, I never have to deal with. It's all administration that's dealing with it. And I found myself several times this summer as I'm trying to finish putting this document together to reflect what my teachers have told me in struggling and not doing it right. And I had to go ask for help from the person at the state. And, same thing. I learned so much. I probably don't ever want to write that document again. But at the same time, like, I really felt like I was putting into practice what I keep telling my students, that number one, you're trying something new, so you're not going to get it right the first time. And number two, that it's okay to ask for help because somebody else probably knows more exactly what to do. And then number three, at the end of the day, I actually did finish the document. I felt better. I had actually accomplished something. And when I turned it in, I found myself going, all right, I did it. Like that sense of accomplishment. And I do that a lot with my students. We spend some time at the very beginning talking about what are your two options when you're failing, when you're trying something and you're not sure. Because I really have to push them instead of getting dead silence. I want them to take the guess. And one of two things is going to happen. And I tell them, you're either going to get it right and you get that yes moment, that excitement if you got it right, or you didn't get it right, but now you're aware of what you were thinking and you can connect the right answer to that and you can get it better. You're going to understand it better. And I found myself in that moment of I now understand more. I could easily teach someone else how to do that document. Like that concept became a reality for me in my professional life, just like I'm trying to get it to be for them and their student life.
Oh, I love that. Well, again, I am so grateful to have this conversation with you. Thank you for helping to connect all the dots for us of how to bring this concept of failing early, failing often alive, how to really shift the conversation, the classroom culture around failure in a different way, and really a change for good, a different perspective, and an important learning opportunity that I think none of us really outgrow. We are all continuing to try things and for them not to work and to learn from it and to become better versions of ourselves. So thank you so much for this great conversation today, Heather. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.